Welcome to another deep dive. And this one might leave you thinking a bit differently about, well, reality itself. We're going to be exploring DMT and its potential connection to the pineal gland.
Hmm.
And guiding us on this journey is Dr. Rick Strassman's book, DMT, The Spirit Molecule,
Yeah.
which chronicles his groundbreaking research administering DMT to volunteers.
Right.
And what's so intriguing is that Strassman's research went beyond just looking at the, psychedelic effects of DMT.
Right.
He wanted to explore its possible role in like mystical and near-death experiences.
Yeah, and what's remarkable about Strassman's work is the sheer amount of time and effort he dedicated to documenting the experiences of these volunteers under really controlled conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, he even included experienced psychedelic users
Oh, wow.
in the study, both for safety reasons and to ensure, the accuracy of the reports.
Yeah.
You're getting these seasoned psychonauts to, really guide you through this uncharted territory.
It's fascinating to think that DMT, this incredibly powerful psychedelic, it's found naturally in our brains, but also in various plants, and it can produce some of the most intense experiences known to humankind.
Absolutely. It really speaks to, the untapped potential of the human brain, right?
Really?
And when you look at the range of effects reported by Strassman's volunteers, it's astounding. He got to categorize them broadly.
Right.
But each category is full of incredible detail.
So let's break down those categories. You mentioned personal and psychological effects. Were there instances where people had therapeutic breakthroughs?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Volunteers reported profound introspection, breakthroughs in addressing anxieties and fears,
Wow.
even resolution of past traumas. There's a case of Cassandra who had this chronic abdominal pain that doctors couldn't explain, and under the influence of DMT, she was able to connect this pain to a repressed trauma from her past.
It's like DMT allows us to access these buried parts of ourselves and then actually confront them.
Yeah, like going right to the source.
So then what about these reports of encountering unseen worlds?
Yeah.
Were those just hallucinations or something more?
Well, many volunteers describe these realms as feeling so real, not just like hallucinations.
Interesting.
One volunteer, Eli, talked about finding himself in this room where he believed he was receiving raw data,
Raw.
almost like the fundamental building blocks of reality. And another volunteer, Philip, he described this landscape so vivid he had to open his eyes to make sure it wasn't overlapping with the actual hospital room he was in.
It really makes you wonder if these experiences are just, a product of the brain or if they could be tapping into something we don't even understand yet.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it leads us to another fascinating category,
Okay.
the contact with these non-material beings.
Okay, now we're getting into the really unknown.
Right.
Are we talking alien encounters?
In a way, yeah. Many volunteers described interacting with entities, often depicted as alien-like or spiritual beings. And these encounters range from simple observations to attempts at communication. And in some cases, even perceived interventions or examinations.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. If these beings aren't physically present, what are people actually interacting with?
Yeah.
Could it be either subconscious or maybe archetypal figures?
Those are definitely possibilities, but it raises so many questions about consciousness and the boundaries of reality.
Right.
Some even suggest we might be accessing a collective unconscious or even other dimensions.
Other dimension. Okay, now that's a whole other level.
Right.
But before we go too far down the DMT rabbit hole,
Sure.
I want to go back to what I find most intriguing, which is Dr. Strassman's hypothesis about the connection to the pineal gland.
Ah, yes, the pineal gland, this tiny pine cone-shaped structure deep in our brains. It's fascinated thinkers for centuries.
I know it produces melatonin, the hormone that regulates our sleep cycles.
Right.
But what does that have to do with DMT and these crazy psychedelic experiences?
Well, the pineal gland has this long and mysterious history. The philosopher René Descartes, way back in the 17th century, he believed it was the seat of the soul, where the mind and body actually interact.
So is Strassman suggesting that the pineal gland, the seat of the soul, might be producing DMT?
That's his hypothesis.
Wow.
He proposes that the pineal gland could be releasing DMT in large amounts during these heightened states of consciousness,
Interesting.
like birth, near-death experiences, even profound mystical states. It's a bold claim, and it's really difficult to prove with our current technology.
I can imagine trying to prove that a tiny gland in our brain is producing a powerful psychedelic. That's going to be really hard.
Yeah, it's not easy.
But if Strassman is right, that has huge implications for how we understand consciousness.
Absolutely. If DMT is naturally occurring within us, as Strassman believes, What does that tell us about the potential of the human mind? What does it reveal about the true nature of reality? It's fascinating.
My mind is officially buzzing with questions. We've
But
covered so much ground.
I know, right?
But there's still so much to unravel. We haven't even talked about those near-death and mystical experiences.
Indeed. And those are the experiences that really push the boundaries of our understanding. We'll delve into those next time and maybe get a little closer to understanding the incredible power of DMT and its connection to these mysteries of the human experience.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride.
So last time we were exploring some really mind-bending aspects of Dr. Strassman's research from those encounters with unseen worlds
Right.
to like contact with these non-material beings.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear more about the near-death and mystical experiences that some of the volunteers reported.
Yeah, these are topics that have captivated humanity for like centuries.
Totally.
And what's so fascinating is that Strassman approached these profound experiences through a scientific lens.
Okay.
He wasn't just collecting anecdotal accounts.
Right.
He was searching for like patterns and commonalities and trying to understand what might be happening in the brain during these extraordinary states of consciousness.
So let's talk near-death experiences.
Okay.
I've heard accounts from people who were clinically dead and then revived.
Yeah.
And they describe like traveling through tunnels of light, feeling this immense peace and unity, even encountering deceased loved ones. Did Strassman's volunteers report similar things under the influence of DMT?
Yeah, strikingly similar, actually. Several volunteers described sensations of dying, leaving their bodies, moving through tunnels of light. They talked about this overwhelming peace, feeling interconnected with everything, and having this really profound shift in their perspective on life and death.
That makes me wonder, did anyone actually die during these experiments?
Thankfully, no safety was paramount in Strassman's research.
Yeah.
The volunteers were really carefully screened and monitored,
Right.
and they had access to medical support if needed.
Right, because it does sound pretty intense.
Yeah, it was intense. But remember, his research was DEA approved and conducted in a hospital setting. So it was as safe as it could be. But the fact that DMT can induce these realistic near-death experiences,
Yeah.
that's pretty remarkable in itself.
It really makes you think about the nature of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
If a chemical can trigger such a profound experience, what does that say about the connection between the brain and the mind?
Right.
Or even the body and the soul?
It definitely adds another layer to this puzzle that has fascinated philosophers and scientists for ages.
Totally.
Strassman's research doesn't give us definitive answers, but it definitely adds fuel to the fire.
Okay, so let's talk about mystical experiences now.
Sure.
How did those differ from the near-death experiences?
Well, while they're often intertwined, mystical experiences tend to emphasize a sense of profound unity,
Okay.
like merging with something greater than oneself, a feeling of cosmic awareness or a divine connection.
So like a spiritual awakening of sorts.
Exactly. And several volunteers describe their DMT sessions in those terms. A spiritual awakening, a glimpse into the divine, a direct encounter with the ground of being.
Do you have a specific example?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Take Cleo, for instance.
Okay.
She had a phobia of snow before the study, and during one of her high-dose sessions, she described this sense of overwhelming unity with the universe.
Wow.
This knowing on a cellular level that God was in everything and everything was interconnected. She said it was like she could feel God dancing in her cells and her cells dancing in God.
That's powerful imagery.
It is.
It sounds like a deeply transformative experience.
Yeah, and she said she was changed forever.
Hmm.
And this was echoed by many other volunteers who reported mystical experiences.
It seems like these DMT experiences, whether near-death or mystical, could be incredibly powerful catalysts for personal change.
Absolutely. But it's crucial to remember that not all volunteers had solely positive experiences.
Right.
Some found the intensity really overwhelming, even terrifying. They described encountering negative entities, feelings of being trapped, or really intense fear and anxiety.
Well, we are talking about a very powerful psychedelic here. It's bound to have unpredictable effects on different individuals.
Right. And Strassman acknowledged that DMT, like any psychedelic, can be challenging.
Yeah.
And that individual experiences vary greatly depending on factors like mindset, psychological history, and the setting in which the drug is taken.
The classic set and setting, right?
Exactly. Strassman went to great lengths to create a safe and supportive environment for his volunteers.
Right.
But even with the best preparation, there's always an element of the unknown when you're exploring these altered states of consciousness.
You're essentially surrendering control to the experience.
Yeah, you're taking a leap of faith. It's not for everyone.
So apart from these difficult experiences, were there any other challenges or controversies surrounding Strassman's research?
Oh, yeah, there were. And keep in mind, this was groundbreaking research, delving into areas like consciousness, mystical experiences, and near-death phenomena.
Right.
These are subjects that mainstream science often avoids.
Yeah, for sure.
And studying the subjective effects of a Schedule I drug, even with DEA approval, that was sure to raise some eyebrows.
I imagine it was a controversial path to pursue.
It was.
What was the reaction from the scientific community?
Yeah,
Did he encounter much resistance?
a lot. Many scientists were really skeptical of his findings. They questioned the validity of subjective reports,
Okay.
the difficulty of replicating the research, and the potential for bias in interpreting the data.
It must have been incredibly frustrating for Strassman.
Yeah, it was a difficult journey for him.
Pouring his heart and soul into this research only to be met with doubt and skepticism.
He describes in his book all the obstacles he faced from institutions and even within his own department.
Wow.
Funding was scarce, bureaucratic hurdles were constant, and some colleagues openly questioned the legitimacy of his work.
It's kind of a common story, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It seems like whenever someone pushes the boundaries of scientific inquiry, especially when it comes to consciousness and the mind,
Right.
they often face an uphill battle.
It highlights the limitations of the traditional scientific method, which is great at studying the objective world,
Yeah.
but really struggles to grasp the subjective nature of consciousness.
It's hard to capture the nuances of inner experience with data points and statistical analysis.
Exactly. And Strassman's work really highlights that tension.
Yeah.
He was attempting to bridge that gap to bring scientific rigor to the exploration of the ineffable, to those mysterious realms of consciousness that DMT seems to unlock.
So despite all these challenges, Strassman persevered
Yeah, he did.
and gave us a glimpse into the incredible spectrum of experiences that DMT can induce. But the question that lingers is, what does it all mean? What are the lasting effects of these experiences? Do they just fade away like a dream, or do they actually have the power to change someone's life?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one we'll explore in depth as we continue our deep dive.
We've been on quite a journey with Dr. Strassman's research,
We have it.
exploring the incredible range of experiences that his volunteers reported.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, did these DMT experiences have a lasting impact on their lives? Did it change the way they lived after the study?
That's the big question, right? Did encountering these unseen worlds, these entities, near-death experiences, did it actually lead to tangible changes?
Yeah.
Strassman followed up with his volunteers to find out.
So what did he find? Did people emerge from these DMT trips like enlightened beings forever changed?
Well, it wasn't quite that straightforward.
Okay.
It was more of a mixed bag. Some volunteers described really profound shifts in perspective, like a diminished fear of death, a deeper appreciation for life, a renewed sense of purpose. But others found it challenging to integrate these experiences back into their everyday lives, and the effects seemed to fade over time.
It makes sense that there wouldn't be one universal outcome, right? It's one thing to have a mystical experience, but it's another to actually embody it in your everyday life.
Right? It's like that saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
It highlights that there's still work to be done even after these profound experiences.
Absolutely. Remember Sean, who described merging with a bright light during the tolerance study?
Yeah.
He later said that this experience helped him realize the power of his own mind to create his own world, essentially.
That's a powerful realization, a sense of empowerment and recognizing the mind's potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Did other volunteers describe similar lasting effects?
Yeah, Willow, who had those vivid near-death experiences, said she felt a newfound peace and acceptance of life, and she no longer feared death.
Wow.
It was as if the DMT experience allowed her to confront that ultimate unknown and make peace with it.
Such a profound shift in perspective. But
Yeah.
it sounds like integration wasn't always easy. Did any volunteers report any negative long-term effects?
Yeah, some individuals struggled with anxiety or a sense of alienation after their DMT experiences. The intensity of those encounters can be hard to reconcile with the day-to-day realities of life.
Right.
Strassman emphasizes that the individual's mindset, the setting, and their overall readiness, these play a huge role in how these powerful experiences are integrated.
It's like opening a door to another realm. And once you've glimpsed those realities, it can be difficult to just close the door and forget.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Strassman's research doesn't offer easy answers.
Right.
It raises more questions than it answers.
It does.
But that's also what makes it so compelling. It invites us to really contemplate the nature of consciousness, the mysteries of the brain, and the potential of the human mind, to explore these realms beyond our everyday perception.
It does feel like we're only scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
I mean, if DMT, the spirit molecule, is naturally present in our brains, like Strassman believes, what are the implications for how we understand reality, spirituality, and the true potential of the human mind?
These are questions worth pondering. Strassman's work suggests that our brains might be capable of so much more than we currently understand, that we might be equipped to access dimensions beyond the material world.
Yeah.
Whether these dimensions are real in the conventional sense
Right.
or represent some kind of interplay of consciousness and neurochemistry, that's a question science is only beginning to explore.
Where do we go from here? Strassman's research has ended, but the questions remain, the mysteries are still out there.
Absolutely. Strassman himself encourages a new generation of researchers to pick up the torch, to explore these questions with open minds, rigorous methodology, and a deep respect for the profound experiences that DMT can unlock.
It's exciting to think about what we might discover if we could safely and ethically harness the power of DMT, understand consciousness, to heal psychological wounds, maybe even gain deeper insights into the mysteries of the universe.
It's a journey worth undertaking.
Yeah, it is.
One that requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to challenge our assumptions about what's possible.
So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind. The world of DMT and the pineal gland is vast and uncharted, full of wonders yet to be discovered.
And remember, keep diving deep.